Just a quick video. I'm going to entitle this that the elite of the society view themselves as gods. Now, ironically enough, today is July the 4th. So, everybody in the society is out there, hollering and screaming, can't hear you over the sound of their freedom, as they say, right? On one hand, everybody is free and, can't be more free than anywhere else in the world. But on the other hand, everybody takes pride in being a law-abiding citizen, right? Everybody takes pride in that. They take pride in how obedient they are to the ruling class, which, logically makes no sense. Like, how could you be free on one hand, but on the other hand, you brag about how obedient you are to the master? And it goes into the title of the video. It shows that the elite of this society, not only do they view themselves as godlike, but the society itself view these men as being godlike in nature, right? Like, say, for instance, in America, there's something called lawmakers or congressmen and women, right? And people view them as having the ability to alter and change our reality. Their mere opinions and thoughts about whatever the matter might be, that's what governs the land. And we all must bow before them and obey whatever their arbitrary commands and guidelines are. And anybody who's caught in disobedience to them and disobedience to them, that person will be severely punished or killed in some instances. So again, it shows everybody out here, whether they'll admit it or not, they truly view the 1% of this society, the leaders and people in quote-unquote authority over the society, those people are viewed as godlike. And everybody bows before them and obeys their every demand and every decree, whatever it might be. Everybody just believes and follows whatever they want. It's truly pathetic and sad. And of course, the pathetic part about it is the fact that everybody claims that they're free in America. Like, as I said, today's July the 4th, right? So everybody's hollering and screaming, claiming that they're free. But yet, on the other hand, everybody bows before government and obeys whatever the politicians' arbitrary guidelines and commands are. It's like, okay, well, you can't be free if you brag about how obedient you are to your master. That's just, that's called being pathetic right there. That's just pathetic. But one thing I want to mention, I was doing some research into something called, let's see, what is that called? Cryo freezing, I believe it's entitled. In fact, let me look it up real quick. Yeah, it's called cryo freezing, right? Look that up on YouTube. Cryo freezing. And basically, in a nutshell, what it is the top elites of the society, the billionaires and, multimillionaires that have hundreds of millions, what they're doing is when they pass away, they'll have their body immediately, flown over to some of these facilities where they will cryo freeze them. They'll put their body into a frozen-like state. And in the hopes that, say, in, 100, 200, 300 years in the future, when men has the capability or they hope to have the capability in that time in order to bring dead people back to life, right? Like, maybe they'll be able to, by some type of miracle or work their magic to try to maybe trans over their brain into like some type of robot, or might be able in some way, shape, or form bring the body back to life. And again, this is far out in the future here. They're saying, maybe 100, 200, 300 years, they're hoping to be frozen for that amount of time. And then when the scientists develop the technology, they can be thawed out from that frozen state. And then they hope that they'll be brought back to life once again. So the elite of the society are looking for many different ways to try to get immortal life, right? To gain eternal life. Because they want to stay in power forever. The truth is, they have everything in the world that they need. Everything they need is at their fingertips. But the one thing they don't have is the time, right? The time is ticking for them, especially a lot of these, top elites around the world. A lot of these men are in their late 70s, 80s, some of them even 90s. So, their time is really running out here. So, look, they might got, $1 billion or 10 billion, 50 billion in the bank, but the truth is, If they don't find a way to what's the word I'm looking for? Extend their life, well, then that's all gonna, be left to their descendants, right? So they're trying desperately now to try to do research into ways to extend their life, right? That's what the elite of the society are trying to do, right? They're spending, millions, to hundreds of millions of dollars for scientists to do research into, some of these animals. Like, say, for instance, there's a creature out there called the immortal jellyfish. And you can look this up to read about it, but what it does basically is once it gets old, it will transform itself back to being young again. So basically, it can live basically forever, unless it gets, eaten by some type of other creature, obviously. But besides that, it's basically immortal, right? Once it gets old, it can just transform itself back into being young. Look that up if you're not familiar with the creature. Or hell, there's other creatures on Earth who can go into a state of, not, I don't know if you call it hibernation, but they're able to stop their heart rate and, survive in freezing temperatures for a long period of time. Like, there's, certain turtles out there who are able to, slow their heart rate and, be able to go into like a hibernation like state for like literally months on end. I don't believe it's called a box turtle, but there's probably like 1,000 different types of turtles out there, or names that they give these different types of turtles. It's funny. Speaking of turtles, I was watching a video the other day where this woman found what she thought was a turtle on the side of the road, and as a kind gesture, she took the turtle and threw it into like a pond, right, a local body of water. And then when she uploaded a video, right, she thought she was doing the creature, help, right, by, bringing it back to water source. But then it turns out that the turtle that she thought it was actually was a tortoise. And for anybody that knows anything about a tortoise, they are land-dwelling creatures, right? They don't live in the water. Right? So sadly the creature drowned because it's not a creature that belongs in the water, right? But she didn't know that because, in her mind, all she knew is that, every turtle, is swimming, right? Every turtle belongs in the water, right? So she didn't know about that. I used to actually have a pet, a tortoise, for maybe like, 9 or 10 years, something like that. But I don't got it anymore, but I used to have that actually for a couple of years. Every couple months you would take them out. Well, you're supposed to do it every month, but what you do to, help them, it's good for their skin and, for their, for other needs they have, you take them out of the cage and like put them into like a shallow, body of water, right? Like take maybe, like a little box or something, like a plastic tote, and just fill it with maybe 2 inches of water. And, you put the tortoise in there for, maybe a half an hour. Make sure you watch them to make sure they don't drown. But, overall, it's good for them, right? It's good for their body once in a while to be dipped in a little bit of water, but they're not, they're not able to swim in any of that, so a lot of people don't know that there's a difference between a turtle and a tortoise. Oh, shit. That's ironic. I was sitting here in the yard, and just in front of me there, a damn tree fell over. It's like, shit. Man, that dude's lucky that didn't fall on his house. Damn.